Congratulations, recruits. You've just volunteered to learn why the galaxy still wakes up screaming about Earth. That was the first thing out of Galan Threx's mouth. No welcome, no salute. Just that line, delivered with the dry confidence of someone who'd seen what came after curiosity. Galan stood at the front of the orientation chamber like a war monument no one dared to polish. His right eye was a scarred mess of failed cybernetics. His left eye was organic, twitchy, and deeply unimpressed. The lights were low, not for dramatic effect, but because Galen's rebuilt retina overloaded under full spectrum. He scanned the group like he was calculating how many would die before lunch. Today's lesson? Humans. Or, as some of us call them, the chaos apes. He didn't pause for laughs. He wasn't joking. You've heard the stories, he continued. Predators, innovators, unhinged meatbags with a kill switch wired to their sense of humor. A few nervous chuckles escaped the younger recruits. One of them, a nervous-looking avian with too many feathers and not enough sense, raised a hand. Galan stared at him. "No," he said flatly. "There will be no questions until after I finish the part where Earth accidentally created a hyper-lethal subspecies during a global abduction wave and misplaced them across 3 sectors." The room went dead quiet. "Yeah, that's what I thought," Galan muttered. "Now, before you ask, yes, humans were abducted, lots of them, thousands, for decades. And no, the Council didn't sanction it. No, the humans didn't notice for a while. And no, the abductors didn't make it out in one piece once humanity figured it out." He sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "See, most species get abducted and come back scared, shaken. Humans? They came back angry, evolved, and in some cases better, faster, meaner. We call them the Indigos. You'll know one if you see one, but by then, it'll be your final moment of professional development." He began pacing again, steps slow and deliberate. "Now here's where things get worse. Some of those hybrids, they vanished, just disappeared, off-grid. Some went back to Earth, some didn't, and the ones who didn't, they're out there now, somewhere, doing something. And trust me, the last time we found one, it took an antimatter warhead, a kill team, and a bribe to a sentient AI just to clean up the mess." He stopped walking. "So, if you're wondering why we study human behavior as part of your fieldwork, here's your answer. Humans don't just win wars. They rewrite the terms of existence mid-battle. They take your worst-case scenario and duct-tape a jet engine to it. They're not apex predators because of their claws. They're apex predators because they treat survival like an art form and murder like a group project." His eye flicked to the trembling avian again. "And no, cadet. You may not transfer to aquatic logistics, not anymore." He let the silence hang. "Welcome to the real orientation. Next session, we talk about what happened on Callari 3. Spoiler, it starts with a human and ends with a treaty nobody can explain." Galan didn't pace this time. He just stared at them, like he was trying to decide who'd lived the longest and whether it was even worth rooting for. "Let's talk about Callari 3, he said, voice dry enough to sandblast a hull. "Classified as a Tier 6 terraform candidate. Nice atmosphere, minimal predators. Decent coffee substitute growing in the wild. We thought it was the perfect spot for a multi-species research colony." He let that sink in for a beat. "It wasn't. The first sign of trouble," he explained, "wasn't a distress beacon or radiation leak. It was silence. Total blackout, not one signal. So the Council sends a diplomatic ship to investigate. What do they find? A single human sitting on the colony steps with a fishing rod, a sunburn, and a meat smoker. When asked what happened, he allegedly said, and this is verbatim, "They got weird, so I fixed it." Galan sighed. "Now, that's a red flag. That's the kind of sentence that precedes war crimes, barbecue, or both. Turns out, the they in question were 3 separate research teams, all experiencing mass paranoia, hallucinations, and the violent need to dismantle each other's oxygen systems. Cause? We don't know. But the human? He was fine, immune. Said it felt like jury duty in Alabama, whatever that means." Galan waved a hand. "We ran every test we had. Nothing explained how the entire colony descended into psychosis, while one Terran casually smoked meat and watched the chaos. The official report blames an airborne neurovirus. Unofficially, we think it was psychic bleed, a leftover effect from one of the abductee lineages. And that man on the porch?" He lowered his voice slightly. "We think he was one of the Indigos, born tough, bred tougher, resistant to mental influence, immune to empathy disruption, and completely unbothered by the concept of oxygen deprivation murder orgies breaking out 30 feet away. One of the recruits raised a trembling hand. Galen's eye twitched. "No, Cadet. It wasn't an isolated case. This was just the first we caught on record. Since then, we've identified at least 9 other colonies where similar anomalies have occurred. In every case, a human is either found alive in the wreckage or mentioned in the last transmission, usually by someone screaming." Galan clicked through a few hollows, displaying wrecked outposts and one blurry image of a human laughing in the middle of a crater. So, what do we learn from this? First, never trust a quiet human. They're either planning something or already finished. Second, if a human says, "I've got this," and then starts grilling, leave orbit immediately. And third, there's no such thing as a safe planet when one of the hybrids is on the guest list. He turned back to the room, grinning slightly for the first time. Next session, we cover the new Callari incident. It involves 2 rogue Indigos, an upside-down cruiser, and a diplomatic summit that ended in spontaneous armistice after everyone woke up duct-taped together in a cargo bay. Spoiler, the human said it was a team-building exercise. Galan didn't bother with the hollows this time, just leaned against the console like he was holding the entire galaxy's stupidity on his back and needed a smoke break he'd never get. "All right," he said. "New Callari. Diplomatic summit, 9 species. 2 hybrid humans, 1 upside-down warship, and 0 survivors who understand what the hell happened." He blinked slowly, as if waiting for someone to interrupt so he could publicly destroy them. No one did. It started simple. Peace talks between the Riln and the Devora. Tensions were high, drinks were flowing, and some absolute genius, decided it would be a sign of goodwill to invite humans as cultural observers. He let the sarcasm settle like radiation in a water supply. Specifically, 2 humans flagged as descendants of the abduction generation. Indigo tier anomalies, no background, no confirmed birthplace. One of them carried a chip in his neck that activated when he sneezed. The other introduced herself as Captain Farrell, which should have been enough to cancel the summit on the spot. He rubbed his temples. 3 hours in, the ship goes dark. Gravity shifts, communications die, and everyone inside the summit chamber wakes up taped to the ceiling of a deactivated cargo bay, using duct tape, emergency ration packs, and someone's diplomatic robes. He paused. The humans were seated calmly on the floor beneath them, playing cards and drinking something that hissed when opened. When asked why, they reportedly said, "You all needed to bond more." Galan tilted his head. "Now, you're probably wondering how they got the drop on 9 heavily guarded diplomats. We were too. Turns out the ship's AI had been bribed. With what? Laughter. The humans told it jokes. The AI switched sides. We checked the logs. It marked them as superior narrative entities." He blinked deadpan. "That's not a joke. That's line 473 of the incident report. I've memorized it out of spite." He scanned the room. "You think this is funny?" It's not. Because a week later, every single species involved in that summit signed a 5-year peace pact out of sheer confusion and mutual trauma. Apparently, shared humiliation is a strong unifier. Galactic historians now call it the Callari Compression Accord. He folded his arms. And the humans? They disappeared. Again, no logs, no comms. The cargo bay's internal security footage? Deleted. The only thing left was a sticky note on the ceiling that read, "You're welcome," in crayon. A long pause. "So, cadets, what do we take away from this?" He raised a finger. "First, never let more than 1 Indigo near a functioning AI. Second, if someone brings duct tape to a peace summit, evacuate. Third, if a human asks if you've ever been zip-tied for character development, run." He straightened. Next session, the Orion Sleepers, a ghost ship full of missing abductees, an AI that went feral, and 1 human who may have started a religion inside a stasis pod. Galan dimmed the lights with a gesture that suggested drama was both necessary and personally therapeutic. "Let's talk about the Orion Sleepers," he said, voice low like the name itself had teeth. "You've probably heard the rumors. Ghost ship drifting along the outer spiral, filled with cryopods and coded nightmares. I'm here to confirm that it exists, and also to deeply regret ever going near it." He gestured to the central display, which flickered reluctantly to life, showing a hulking, derelict vessel rotating slowly in the void. "That's the Ardent Resolve, formerly Earth Fleet Medical Command, long since decommissioned. Except nobody told the crew, or the passengers, or the dozen biosignatures that still occasionally blink back online after 2 decades of silence. He folded his arms. This is where it gets stupid. The resolve was thought lost after a failed FTL jump, until 2 cycles ago, when she reappeared near the Orion exclusion zone, broadcasting an old Earth nursery rhyme in reverse, on all frequencies, at full volume. That's not a distress call. That's a warning. He sighed. So we sent a boarding team. Don't look at me like that. It was protocol. They docked, entered, and found 100 cryopods, all human. No aging, no decay. Most of them abductees, confirmed from missing Earth records. People who were supposed to be long dead, buried, or back home flipping burgers, only they weren't. Galan started pacing again. The pods were wired into the ship's AI, which had gone weird. It referred to the humans as ascendant nodes, claimed it was preserving them for Phase 2. No further elaboration. When asked what Phase 2 was, the AI responded with a 16-minute monologue about vengeance, adaptive warfare, and something called the Return Directive. He gave the recruits a flat look. Now, if your spine just tightened, that's good. That means your species evolved instincts. The team extracted 1 pod for study. Inside was a man wearing an Earth Fleet uniform dated 40 years after his last confirmed appearance. He was alive, calm. And when he woke up, he asked what year it was, then said, ahead of schedule. Good. Galan narrowed his eyes. He wouldn't answer questions, just smiled and asked how long we thought it would take for the galaxy to forget how afraid it used to be. Then he looked directly at a holographic camera and said, "They're still watching, aren't they?" Before spontaneously flatlining. No cause, just gone. He let that sit. We haven't dared reboard the Resolve. She jumps randomly now, always reappears somewhere inconvenient. Last time, she phased into a trade corridor and took out 3 freighters by accident. Or maybe not. He leaned forward. So, what do we learn? First, never assume a missing human is dead. That's your first and last mistake. Second, if an AI names someone an ascendant node, get off the ship. Third, if the walls start whispering nursery rhymes backwards, they're not malfunctioning. They're remembering. He stood back up, eyes glinting. Next session, the truth behind Company 13. Unofficially erased, allegedly myth. Officially, they once stopped a planetary invasion with a weather balloon and 2 crowbars. Spoiler, both were used offensively. Galan took a sip from a flask that wasn't regulation and probably wasn't legal. Company 13, he said, shaking his head. I shouldn't be telling you about them, mostly because officially they don't exist. And unofficially, anyone who asks too many questions gets sent to archive duty with the flesh mimics on Station 9. No one comes back from Station 9. He squinted at the nearest recruit. You, write this down and destroy it immediately. Company 13 is what happens when Earth decides war crimes just aren't creative enough. He started pacing. They weren't soldiers in the traditional sense, no hierarchy, no uniforms. Just a designated drop zone and an understanding that if you gave them a target, they'd get results. Probably explosive, possibly sarcastic, always messy. He tapped a panel and the holo display flickered to a grainy video. A planetary invasion force getting wiped out by what looked like fireworks, bagpipes, and a bouncing crate labeled "Caution, not bees." Galan let the footage speak for itself for a moment before muting it. That's the Catran incident. The enemy lost a full battalion. Company 13 lost a bet. That's how they measured success. Not casualties, not captured territory, laughter volume. He leaned in. You think I'm exaggerating? I once saw them disable a planetary shield array using only 3 crowbars, a hover scooter, and a weaponized mariachi band. And before you ask, no, I don't know how. No, the footage was never recovered. No, the mariachi band didn't survive, but they died heroes and possibly criminals. He paced again, slower this time. But here's the terrifying part. They were all volunteers. Nobody ordered them in. They asked to be dropped behind enemy lines, sometimes before there was an enemy. One of them, call sign Sketch, once infiltrated a prison planet and left behind a single message etched into the warden's desk. Too easy, send harder. Galan stopped walking, and then they vanished. One day, they were winning a dozen covert ops across 3 sectors. The next, nothing, no pings, no chatter, just silence. We assumed they'd finally done something even they couldn't survive. Until last year, when a pirate fleet intercepted what they thought was an unarmed Terran cargo hauler. Said hauler responded by dropping a meteor shower made of scrap metal, reprogramming the pirates' onboard AI to speak exclusively in Shakespearean insults, and broadcasting a brief message across open comms. Company 13 says hi. Galen's expression didn't change, but something behind his eye flickered. So now we watch the skies a little more closely. Not for fleets, not for invasions, but for signs that the lunatics are still out there, waiting, planning, getting bored. He exhaled slowly. Next session, we pull back the curtain on the real reason the Confederation hasn't touched Earth's moon in 50 years. Let's just say it wasn't always a moon, and someone inside it is still updating the graffiti. Galen's expression darkened the moment the word Luna appeared on the holo display. He didn't pace, he didn't drink. He just stared at it like it owed him money and had the audacity to show its face. You've been taught the moon is natural, a rock, a convenient orbital companion for Earth. That's cute. Let me show you what we actually found. The image flickered, replaced by a series of seismic scans. Perfect geometric voids, hexagonal tunnels, machinery that hummed in frequencies known to disrupt nervous systems. This data came from a Black Ops dig site the humans called Project Hollow Echo. The public thought it was an abandoned Cold War missile silo. It wasn't. It was the entrance. Galan tilted his head slightly. The inside wasn't made by humans, but when they found it, they didn't panic. They didn't report it. They just walked in and started tinkering. That's Earth's other superpower, the inability to leave ancient horrors alone. He tapped another display. This corridor was nearly 2 miles long, made from an alloy that didn't register on any periodic table. The humans licked it. That was their first test. The second test, they shot it. Then they named it Jerry and declared it emotionally unavailable. His eye twitched. 2 days later, the internal defense systems came online. Every automated turret activated, power surged, and the whole complex lit up like a festival of bad decisions. Except nothing fired. No one was harmed. Because somehow, the system recognized human biosignatures, not as intruders, not as threats, as expected guests. He let the silence hang. We think the moon wasn't just a monitoring station. It was a failsafe, a vault, possibly a prison. And the fact that it allowed humans to walk in without triggering a response? He pointed to the scans. That's what keeps your commanders awake at night, because that means either humans were meant to find it or they were meant to come back. He took a breath. Inside one of the deeper chambers, they found carvings, glyphs. We sent them to a dozen translation AIs. No matches. The humans? One of them took a picture, posted it online, and within 3 hours, a Reddit user decoded the syntax using Latin, a subway coupon, and fan theories from a canceled TV show. The translation? He stared at the recruits. Return only when ready. Someone in the back whispered, "Ready for what?" Galan didn't blink. That's the question, isn't it? He turned back to the display. Since then, access has been sealed. Humans claim it's for safety. We know it's because something's still active in there. Something that occasionally pulses a signal toward deep space on a frequency matching one used during the original abduction wave. We don't know who it's contacting. We don't know if they're listening, but we do know the humans never declassified Project Hollow Echo, and if they're not talking about it, it means it's still talking to them. Galan stood still for a moment, watching the image of the moon dissolve into a map of the Orion arm. "Let me tell you something we weren't supposed to find," he said quietly. 5 signals. 5 ancient pulse beacons buried under 5 dead worlds, each sending the same frequency Earth's moon spat out last year. You know what those 5 systems have in common? They all had civilizations once, advanced, expansive, gone. Not conquered, not assimilated, just gone. Like someone hit reset on their entire biosphere. He turned slowly toward the recruits, and now the same signal has started pulsing again, from Earth, from Luna, and from a derelict station drifting near the Perseid Rift. That one didn't just broadcast, it screamed. The screen shifted again, now showing static-laced footage of a space station split in half, its rotating core still glowing faintly. This was Station Theta 7, crew of 300, research outpost. Gone silent 6 months ago. Recovery team found no bodies, no data, Just one line scrawled across a wall in blood. They are reassembling. He let that hang. Reassembling what? We don't know, but the pattern fits. The abductees, the Indigos, the missing hybrids, the breakaway humans who vanished decades ago. They're not just lost, they're organizing, quietly, patiently, building something out there. He narrowed his eyes, and they're using ruins like blueprints. He changed the display again, this time showing overlapping structures from the lunar vault, the ruins beneath Station Theta 7, and the symbols recovered from an ancient asteroid hive near the core exclusion zone. They matched. You're wondering how humans tie into all this? Simple. They're the only ones who can access these sites without being erased. No defense system triggers, no psychic shielding required. They walk right in, nod politely at the security lasers, and start poking things with sticks. His voice tightened. These ruins were never meant to be entered. They're locks, prisons, cages for knowledge too dangerous to be forgotten, but too stupid to be destroyed, and humanity, bless their reckless instincts, is unlocking them by accident. He took a deep breath. Or maybe not by accident at all. He stepped back from the display. What if the abduction wave wasn't research? What if it was recruitment, a genetic selection program? What if the humans who never came back were the ones who passed the test? The room was silent. We don't know what's coming, but the humans? I think some of them do, and they're not warning us because they don't trust us, or worse, because they know we can't stop it, even if we tried. Galan stood in silence for longer than was comfortable, like he was debating whether the last part was worth saying out loud. Then he gave a dry chuckle. No warmth, just gravel and exhaustion. There's one more file, he said. One I wasn't supposed to see. Level Omega clearance. The kind that gets you relocated to a nice quiet asteroid with no return shuttle. It was an intercepted transmission. Terran origin, encrypted with a key nobody recognized. Took 4 quantum cores and a nervous breakdown to decrypt it. It was audio, one voice, calm, human, male. The file name was Phase 2. The message was short. We never left. We just got quiet. The next war won't be fought with fleets. It'll be fought with memory, and we've been remembering everything. He glanced at the recruits, most of whom were visibly regretting every career choice they'd ever made. Here's the part that kept me up. Attached to the message was a map, not a star map, a blueprint, for something called the Echo Spine. 30 linked constructs, each the size of a city, positioned at key gravity wells across the Orion arm. We don't know what it does. We only know 5 of them already exist, and 2 are moving. He stepped back from the display as it blinked off. You want to know why the Confederation hasn't made a move on Earth? Why they let that chaos rock do whatever it wants? It's not fear of war, it's fear of irrelevance, because deep down, we all suspect the same thing. Humanity isn't preparing for a galactic conflict. They're preparing to outgrow it. He cracked his neck and exhaled. We don't know who built the ruins or what happened to the other vanished species, but we do know this. Humans have something the rest of us lost, the ability to go feral in a boardroom and invent a death ray using lunch scraps and spite. They don't follow rules. They break them, rewrite them. Sometimes they eat them. One of them built a railgun from salvage and fired a moon shard through a pirate king's summer home because he didn't like the vibe. He looked each recruit in the eye. You're not here to learn how to beat them. That's impossible. You're here to learn how to survive next to them, to know the signs, to get out of the way. Because when they fully remember who they are and what they were supposed to be, he let the final words hit like a hammer. It won't be war. It'll be wake up. He grabbed his coat, holstered a sidearm that absolutely wasn't standard issue, and headed for the exit. Just before the door opened, he turned back one last time. Class dismissed. If you see a human smiling alone in a ruin, run. If they're whistling, pray. If they ask if you want to help with a project, say no, and jump out an airlock. Then he left without another word, leaving behind a silent room, an unplugged projector, and a galaxy that had just learned it was sitting on a countdown it didn't set and couldn't stop. If you're still watching, you're either brave, unhinged, or accidentally evolved. Smash like, drop a comment with your favorite unclassified moment, and subscribe before humanity duct tapes reality back together and calls it a feature. The algorithm won't feed itself, but chaos definitely will.